So, Mark, I want to say congratulations on the film. I've had a chance to sit down and take a look at it, and it's an absolutely fantastic film. So, congratulations.
Well, thanks for watching it, and I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, it was a joy to make, and quite an amazing experience as well.
So, Mark, tell us a little bit about what impressed you so much when you sat down and read Nick May's screenplay. What made you want to be involved with this film?
Uh, Actually, the original draft that I read by Nick was set in the '70s, and it was really about COINTELPRO and and J. Edgar Hoover's program that collapsed in 1971, which was basically a counterintelligence program, which was obviously very illegal. And as I read it and I really studied it and I thought about it, it occurred to me that the program might have gone away in 1971, but it might still be living on today. You know, with all the craziness in the world, that there very easily could have been a very similar situation happening. You know, with modern day politics and whatnot. So for me, it was more about the taking that element, and then also I thought the character of Travis was fascinating because he's a guy who goes into situations where agents are in trouble and pulls them out and saves them, and that's obviously the start of the movie. But and he gets into his own situations. But for me, I thought the character itself, and then also that COINTELPRO element, you know. But it was important to bring it to a modern day, to a modern audience for me.
You mentioned about the craziness of the world at the moment. I think that makes this movie even more accessible to people watching the film. But how careful did you have to be as a filmmaker not to make this film in such a way that people would think that you're favoring a certain political side or anything like that? Did that make it difficult in a way?
It wasn't so much difficult, but it was certainly a choice, and I definitely did not pick sides because, you know, everybody has their opinions, and many are right and many are wrong, and I mean, a lot of them are gray in the middle. So I think it's really about you know, not making it about that. Obviously, that's a backdrop to start the story off, but really it's not about politics. It's really about a character who's trying to decide has he been doing the right thing his whole career, and trying to figure out is there a way to get out of the situation.
Definitely. And the character of Travis is such an interesting character. I love the scenes that you have in this film, especially with where he's with his family as well. Tell us a little bit about how you and Nick developed Travis as a character and how important that was for you to show the audience both sides of his personal life and his working life.
Well, for me, obviously I had that job description down pat from Nick's draft, but really, you know, I've spent a good amount of time with Liam and knowing him. He's a very layered, smart, funny, likable person, and so I really wanted to dive into the human side of him, and something that we haven't really seen as much of in his, let's say, Taken series. You know, it's always that action hero side of him, and I really wanted to dive deeper into the human side of him to differentiate it, and also to go for the ride with somebody that's a little more human, perhaps. And so for me, it was really about looking for ways to enhance that, and to have him feel guilt about numerous things, you know, so that he, you know, as we all do, we all, you know, look in hindsight of what we could have done, whether it's, you know, in his deep past with Robinson, or if it's with his past with his daughter. You know, he's trying to make up for those things that he felt he may have done wrong.
Well, you worked with Liam, of course, on your last film as well. Was Liam always Travis Block for you, or did you have a few discussions there with the producers about who would play the perfect Travis Block?
No, it was always Liam for me, and I designed it for him, with him in mind, and really, you know, I knew what he wanted to do in many ways, and what he was capable of doing, and then I really wanted to push him, you know, on an emotional level.
So tell us a little bit about that, pushing him on an emotional level. As we know, Liam Neeson is an amazing actor, and a lot of the younger generation forget what a great dramatic actor he is because of how many action and genre movies he's made over the past few years. But tell us a little bit about what it was like working with Liam with this character and getting that emotional range out of him as well.
And you already just said it, but yes, everybody, that's been watching his last movies in the last 15 years, they know him as an action hero. I mean, he is a phenomenal actor, and from take 1 to take 3, 4, 5, however many takes we have, he delivers as an actor every single time, whether it's a drama scene or an action scene. I mean, he is just on his game and gives nuance to his performance, and it's fun to watch, really. And even when I give him notes, they're usually pretty small. But I watch him, change the performance by just a hair, and it just gives it a little bit different feel to it than the previous take. So watch him do that. So for me, it was about humanizing him, and obviously that comes in multiple forms. I mean, one is the OCD, which was part of a way of showing his broken character, in a visual way, as opposed to just talking about him being broken. I wanted to show a way the audience could see how all the guilt that was inside of him was manifesting itself. So the OCD was a way to humanize him, and a lot of people can relate to OCD in one form or another. Some more extreme than others, and some less. But to do that, but then also the guilt of his relationship with his daughter, and he'd spent so much time working and not spending time, having a real relationship. So then that brought in his granddaughter, who obviously, is this innocent person who he wants to spend time with. And he even says, he thinks she likes him, which is, a funny thing for an older man to say about a 5-year-old, but I think it's honest and true that he's looking for that connection.
Those scenes between Liam and Gabriella were so beautiful to watch on screen. What were they like to film for you as director?
She is such a talent that it's sort of shocking to think that she's actually 5 years old when we shot that, and so it was fun to see her go, and she knew what she was doing. She knew her lines. But you are directing a 5-year-old, so there are some challenges, and you're not doing one take, so it's about, and you're also doing multiple angles, so it's really about corralling her energy and corralling her attention to really, to reproduce it. But she was so good and able to just bring the emotion, and in fact, there's that scene on the couch in the middle of the movie, and I looked around after that scene, and I was surprised that there were some tears in eyes of the crew, and I was like, okay, I think we have something with her, because she really brought the emotion out, and it was quite lovely to see.
The other character who's really interesting here as well is Dusty. He's an interesting character because you need that air of mystery around him, because we're almost seeing him as an audience through Mira's eyes, and we're not sure whether we can trust him, what's going on there. How difficult was that for you as a director to bring that kind of air of mystery around Dusty, but also make him kind of likable for the audience as well?
I think a lot of that came down to casting. Taylor John Smith, who plays Dusty, has such a likability to him. In person, you can't help but like him, and his eyes are deep, and so for me, it was really getting that right casting so that you'll like him from the second you meet him, even though you don't quite understand what's going on with him. You can, there's a likability to him, and then obviously, yes, as we start the movie, you question, is this guy a good guy or a bad guy? And I think that's part of the journey, is to figure out who he is. But then, when you start hearing his story, you start taking sides with him, and understanding that there's more going on here, and he's trying to do the right thing, which is something that is a bit of a challenge. And also, I think Travis, Liam's character, sees a bit of himself in Dusty, and so I think that there's a nice relationship that grows between them pretty quickly.
I also wanted to talk about Emmy playing Mira as well. She's absolutely fantastic in this film. Tell us a little bit about that casting choice of Emmy to play Mira.
Actually, one of the more challenging roles, I thought, to cast, just because you have to you have to have that energy about her, but also believe her in the role, but have that desire that she has to prove herself. Somebody that hasn't achieved what they believe they've already achieved, and get that on screen. And so we ended up doing auditions, and I probably saw 100, 120 auditions, and then from there I did some casting, and literally the first time I had her in an audition room with me, I knew it was her. It was just something about her uniqueness of the way she looks and moves and feels. Like there's just a warmth to her, but an eagerness, something to prove, and it was really a pretty easy choice once I had it all in front of me.
Now, Mark, you filmed in my hometown. I actually walked past that tea house where you filmed some of those scenes every single day to get to work. Tell us a little bit about what it was like filming in Melbourne, especially given that when you were filming this movie, Melbourne was the most locked down city in the world because of the pandemic.
Which was actually worked in our favor to a large degree. I mean, we were able to run around and shoot in a lot of places that normally were very crowded and very busy and very difficult to use. So, the COVID was our friend in some ways. It was obviously not a good friend in many ways, but it was really about allowing us to do things that we normally probably couldn't do on a budget or whatnot. And we also got to shoot at the convention center, which is something that's pretty rare these days. So I think COVID opened up a lot of possibilities, and the city was happy to have us there because they wanted people to be back to work.
Was there a reason why you chose Melbourne? Like you could have chosen any city in the world. Was there a reason why Melbourne was the city that ended up becoming the city that you chose?
One of my producers, Paul Curry, lives in Melbourne, produces a lot of movies in and around Melbourne, and so he's been trying to convince me to come for about 10 years, and so finally I broke down and said let's do this. But it also made a lot of sense. We're shooting for Washington D.C., and you can't really shoot around Washington D.C. just because of the security and everything else. So it was really looking for a good modern day, good looking city as a double for Washington D.C. And also the crew. I knew the crew was phenomenal and everything I'd heard, and so it was an easy choice actually.
Well, Mark, we are almost right out of time with the interview, so to wrap up, I would love to ask, what would you like to say to everybody out there who's thinking about going and seeing this movie, especially people in Melbourne going to see it?
Please, we've all been living through a lot of things and not going to see the cinema, but this is one to go see. It's shot in Melbourne. It's shot with love in Melbourne, with a lot of people that work and live in Melbourne, and this is entertainment, and it should be a fun ride.
Awesome. And just to finish off, I want to say thank you so much for introducing Claire to an international audience as well. But thank you so much for making the film, and thank you so much for giving us the time of day today to chat to you.
Appreciate it, David. Thanks very much.
No problem.